Welcome back with another banger. It's the React Files. Hope you're having a good night. Let's get straight to it.
This is how the Llorona crying woman sounds in the canals of Zacamilco, Mexico. But here's the strange thing. 3 figures are seen in the water. Could it be her offspring, the ones she deleted? Or, here's another suggestion, could they be sirens? People who have heard La Llorona will swear her laments sound the same because it's obviously coming from the same entity. We all have a similar laugh and a similar cry, so many don't believe this is La Llorona but sirens. Either that or the loudest crying you're hearing could be coming from one of the deleted children. Watch this.
Menos mal que traigo mi primera comunión.
Los lamentos pues no me han espantado tanto porque pues ya es algo, bueno, no es como, a pesar de que no son tan cotidianos, que no sean diario, pues como ya los conoces, más no te asomas. Ya tapas bien con las cobijas y se te olvida. Luego.
Menos mal que traigo mi primera comunión.
Los lamentos pues no me han espantado tanto porque pues ya es algo, bueno, no es como, a pesar de que no son tan cotidianos, que no sean diario, pues como ya los conoces, más no te asomas. Ya tapas bien con las cobijas y se te olvida luego.
Menos mal que traigo mi primera comunión.
Los lamentos pues no me han espantado tanto porque pues ya es algo, bueno, no es como, a pesar de que no son tan cotidianos, que no sean diario, pues como ya los conoces, más no te asomas. Ya tapas bien con las cobijas y se te olvida.
Follow me for your dose of nightmare fuel.
Wouldn't it be crazy if the helicopter that fell into the Hudson was sabotaged? No, not really, but indulge me. Wouldn't it be crazy if it's extremely rare for a tail rotor to just completely fall off a helicopter mid-flight? Yes, it can happen with like extreme pressure changes, but this thing was just doing a straight shot, low altitude. I mean, I guess someone mentioned a Jesus nut. I guess that's a very defined helicopter thing. So, no Jesus nut would just be left loose unless it was done intentionally, right? Having said that, there's also witnesses that claim to have seen a drone that was maybe in the area. I don't know, has New York seen any weird drone sightings lately? I don't know, maybe. Wouldn't it also be crazy if the Coast Guard, as shown by friend of the channel War Deadpool, shout out over on TikTok, the Coast Guard was about 2 miles from the crash site when it went down. And you can see here, it just flew right on by. Just sailed right on by there. I guess he had better things to deal with. He could have responded in like a minute. Furthermore, did you know that there was a helicopter pretty much following the one that fell? This one, right here. God, it'd be interesting to see footage that helicopter might have, I don't know. Or hear what the people on it have to say. And I guess it'd be really crazy if the guy who died from Siemens had worked on a deal with Turkish Railways to boycott Israel.
That absolutely would be crazy. Shout outs to News Updates for Real 6. Gotta say, this whole situation is really strange.
Breaking news, this just got officially fishy because Coast Guard was within 2 miles of the helicopter crash and they literally go flying right past it for miles and miles and miles. They never come back down here. They could have responded within 1 minute of that spot and they did not. It was responded by New York City Police Department 6 minutes after it had crashed is when New York City Police Department was able to arrive on scene. So this is how far Coast Guard came up here before they came and did a U-turn. This is all the way up in Fort Lee. So this is where the helicopter crash is. This is where Coast Guard was at, which is 1.7 miles away. Now, this is where Coast Guard ended up turning around at, which is almost 9 miles away. Here's another thing. There was another helicopter that was right behind them that followed this situation. So I'm sure this helicopter has some footage that'll come out in months of what took place. Now, this is the helicopter that crashed here. As you see, they went from 1,000 to 1,200 feet within about 6 to 7 minutes into their flight, and it was going up and down. 3 minutes after that, they decided to do a U-turn, which you can still see it's still acting erratic of going up and down. And sadly, about 3 minutes after their U-turn, they went from 1,100 feet down to 700 feet within 1 minute. And then as they got closer to where the crash site happened, that's when it just plummeted very fastly. But I want to know, why did Coast Guard go past there? Take care. God bless.
Maybe it was something to do with jurisdiction protocols. Shout outs to War Deadpool, but that droppage in altitude in the span of a minute is really questionable.
Y'all know who was on that helicopter yesterday that crashed into the Hudson River? Let's just say I went down that rabbit hole and this shit does not seem like an accident. And let me start off by saying this is another big time CEO that lost his life. Matter of fact, look at this shit. Y'all see his name up there? Augustin Escobar, a Siemens executive. You see what it says right there? Look at that. Look right there. Siemens CEO. Do you know what type of information that man had? Do you know how big that man was? What I will say is this, because you can't say too much on this app. That helicopter that they rode in, let's just say that those helicopters are serviced daily. Tourists ride in those helicopters on a regular basis. So you tell me this helicopter gets in the air, reports that they're low on gas and that they'll be coming back, doesn't make it back. While in the air, the helicopter just breaks into pieces. I want you to, with the same mind, tell me that that made sense to you. First and foremost, how did the helicopter break into pieces? If you've seen the video, you've seen the helicopter fall, you've seen the wing up here, you've seen the back of the helicopter off. What happened to that helicopter in the air? And the most important question, who was flying the helicopter? Yeah, okay. Pay attention.
Well, we know the pilot was an ex-Navy SEAL. Shout out to Expensive Taste. It's definitely a rabbit hole because I didn't think that low fuel would lead to a helicopter falling apart on his way back to the base. That's crazy. Once again, my condolences to the families of the victims that was in this tragedy.
Description from the original poster of this video states, "My grandmother had just gone to bed. She is 99 years old, and she heard unknown voices murmuring. My grandmother does not remember anything much about that night. She doesn't remember hearing a second voice. She does not have a phone, and the television wasn't on. Watch this." You can hear a very low voice that sounds like a man's. You can hear the grandmother. Remember, there was no phone in the room. The TV was off and there were no residents in the neighborhood, so who was making that second voice? The original poster believes she's talking back to her deceased son, and that he there to comfort her in her last hours. It's amazing how much energy his spirit has used to be able to not only talk to his mom, but loud enough for her to hear his every word. Now imagine that's just a short clip. How many times have mother and son talked together already? We may never know, but at least we get a rare and beautiful moment captured on the camera's audio. Follow me for your dose of nightmare fuel.
Oh, I got your ass now. Take a look at those. What are those? You've probably seen this before, but you ain't never really put it together or know what it was. It looks decorative, ceremonial, right? We about to break this down because they put it right in front of us and they trying to bullshit us. Now what you're gonna notice is this thing called the Fasces. Fasces. I am giving you new eyes. After today, you will not be able to unsee the Fasces. You will see it everywhere. Why? Because it is everywhere. Look here. Mercury. Why would you have Mercury on one side of this coin? We know what Mercury is used for. Anytime you see Mercury, tap that into free energy. Over here on the other side, what do they have? They have a Fasces. What is a Fasces? We're in class. Let's go. A Fasces was a bundle of rods held together with bindings. Outside the sacred boundary of Rome, these bundles could also include an axe, whose blade or blades projected out from the rods. The Latin word fasces actually means bundle, and they were carried by lictors, which may have come from licar, to bind. The rods were to signify the official's power to enforce corporal punishment, and the axe was to signify the official's power to order capital punishment. With that said, the fasces tended to be an unwieldy cylinder that lictors would often rest on their shoulders, with the possible exception of a lictor using it to shove somebody out the way. It would have been pretty useless in combat. Okay? They're saying it's useless in combat. But they're saying the lictors would be carrying this around as like a symbol to be like, oh, he's carrying a fasces? That must mean this motherfucker right here can cut my head off. So they're trying to explain to us that this fasces was just a symbol of power. Like, we just carry this around to let people know we run shit and we'll chop your head off. That's bullshit. The fasces did not really function as weapons. The stone axe heads were even removed when within the ceremonial borders of Rome. So, you know, they'd have an axe head, they'd be carrying them around, and then once they get within the borders of Rome, they go, oh, take the axe heads off now. Yeah, we're within the borders. Okay. Look, but were rather symbols of power and authority. If a magistrate was attacked, he would simply have to trust that all of his aides, clients, personal attendants, and possibly hired gladiators or armed slaves could overpower the mob. So, he would have these lictors that are supposed to be his guards carrying these fasces, which are supposed to tell people he has the authority to inflict capital punishment, right? Is this making any sense? But if he's attacked, he has to trust that his aides, clients, and other people, attendants around are gonna overpower the mob for him. This is gonna get ridiculous, but I'm gonna put it together. Fasces were primarily used as symbols of judicial power. Lictors following important Roman officials while carrying fasces. However, these lictors technically were also bodyguards. Given that they were near constantly carrying fasces, it makes sense that they would have used it for defense. However, it seems to me that it'd be too unwieldy to use in actual combat. So do we have any... Exactly. You see what the problem is here? They're trying to tell you that, one, these are being carried by lictors for a magistrate, and these are supposed to be his bodyguards. But these fasces are not used as weapons. Also, I mean, I just read it and you just did. It looks like this is a ceremony. It looks like they're within the borders of Rome. The axe is still on there. Look, the axe. I thought when y'all was within the borders of Rome, y'all took the axe off. I guess y'all just forgot about that rule for today. Bundle, wrapped rod, axe piece coming out. Look at this guy. Does he look like he's a lictor? Let me show you something else. They were carried by lictors who acted as bodyguards and symbolized the... Why is a bodyguard, right? You're supposed to be a bodyguard. You're carrying something that's not a weapon. You can't even protect the magistrate with it. Does that make any sense? Unless they're hiding its actual function. These two Jews just chilling, holding their fasces. There's another one right there. That looks like that's on like a sewer hole or something. Something important. Remember what it symbolizes. That's on the quarter. You will never forget that for the rest of your life. Right there. See it? The eagle. This, which is the symbol. The United States is holding on to a fasces, which is a symbol of the Roman Empire, which tells you I'm a high-ranking official and I can induce capital punishment. Y'all put the rest of that together. Look here. And I mean, we talking ancient, okay? Brutus, BC. Look at them carrying, look, you see the axe on it? They're carrying fasces. Look, between two lictors. And I found this very, very interesting, right? Because if you look right here and go across, it says a general. If you're a general, a military general, go across, you get 6 lictors. 6 lictors. If you're part of the High Council, you get 12 lictors. So if you're a general, you get 6 lictors, and those lictors will be carrying fasces, right? So what I did was I went back to the movies, because, you know, they have to try and get this Rome thing in your head, you know, just like construction photos. They have to try and instill Rome in your head. So they made all these movies. So I go look back. I went to go back to watch Maximus and all these things where, quote unquote, Caesar and all these. He's part of the High Council. Maximus was a general. He should have been followed by 6 lictors carrying fasces. Nowhere in the movie was there any lictors, and nobody was carrying any fasces. But as you can see, this is the ranking. This is how many lictors you're supposed to get. Council, 12. Pro-council, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He's carrying one. There it is again. He's got one right there. This person carrying one right here. Look in this seam right here, right in the background. Boom. This guy's carrying one. He don't look like a lictor. He looks pretty important. This person's got one. Take a look at that. George has got one. This giant is holding one. I mean, for God's sake, these things are everywhere. You just never looked. Yeah, go ahead, look on the back of your dime. There's one right there. Now for the cool part. I think they're lying, and it's an energy device. It's a free energy device, and it is a weapon. But just like the Vajra, they're not going to tell us that. Look at this device here. What does that look like to you? Well, what do we have here? Wrapped around, the rods, the binding, the axe sticking out. Yeah, that looks like a device. If you turn that device to the side, and you look at it this way, it's wrapped, it's bound, it's got the rods, and then that right there would be the axe that sticks out. That Fasces is a free energy device, almost just like the galvanic battery. And they put it right in our face. Even Lincoln has 2 of them. What if Mercury goes inside of the Fasces and activates it? Because I'm not buying them telling me that this right here, and this right here isn't this right here. But when the mind's blind,
Shout out to Piper Miller 31. Possibly a Tartarian energy device. That's crazy. It started to make sense once you thought about it being turned sideways. And maybe the piece sticking out is just a handle. Maybe it has something to do with the bells. Yeah, my mind is blown right now. It's crazy how it's depicted all through history. Paintings, Lincoln, sitting there with two of them. Like a badass. This one is very interesting.
No, LaGuardia, New York 39, back with you for Bravo, sir. New York 39, Woody South, 3032, Bravo, sir, approved.
So the LaGuardia air traffic controllers talk to these guys numerous times a day, and their Bravo tour's back, and this guy's headed north up the river. He's going to make it to just past the George Washington Bridge, and then they're going to turn around and come back towards the Statue of Liberty.
New York 39, traffic 2 o'clock, and that's 2 miles southeastbound, helicopter 1300, heads on the site.
Another traffic call.
New York 39, look up for that traffic. Could I also get that check out? New York 39, leave the Bravo, ready to turn, smoking for frequent cruise traffic, full facing north south 15 helicopter.
So he says, can I also get a checkout? What's he asking there? When he says that, he's asking for VFR flight following. So he's not on an instrument flight plan where it's a prescribed route that you have to go. He knows he's supposed to stay below that 1,300 feet. He knows he's going to go up and down the Hudson River corridor, but he wants a radar facility, or LaGuardia in this case, to follow him. And if they have the time, and they will then give him traffic calls. They've been doing that up to this point. So they just confirmed now with New York 39 that they're going to follow him and they're going to call traffic. So that's very nice. It's a kind of a safeguard for mid-airs.
Got that shot to the side, maintain a visual set, New York 39, thanks for help.
Now they turned around, they're headed south again. Okay, at some point now they're approaching the entrance to the Holland Tunnel, and just basically even less than a quarter mile away from that, something catastrophic happens with this helicopter. There is no radio communication. They don't even have time to get a call out. The conjecture is that either they hit something or somehow maybe the rotor on the aircraft came apart. Here's how a helicopter works. The wing, if you will, the wing on a helicopter is that rotating blade on the top called a rotor. That's the primary rotor. It's spinning at a very high speed, but the leading edge of that rotor that's spinning around is creating lift for the helicopter. So all the weight of the helicopter is lifted up on that. And there are a lot of moving parts in a helicopter. A lot of people think helicopters are unsafe because of that. I'm just here to tell you they're safe. There's just a lot of moving parts in a helicopter. The tail also has a rotor on it, and it's oriented in a different direction. It's to keep the helicopter pointing straight. Because if that rotating blade on the top would cause the helicopter to spin as well, so that tail rotor keeps the aircraft straight. At some point here, as we see the footage of the airplane kind of in slow motion coming down, or the helicopter coming down, you can see that there are parts falling off of it. The fuselage of the helicopter is actually upside down at this point, and all of the rotors are gone, and the tail section is missing. So something extremely catastrophic happened at some point right around the 900-foot mark as they're coming down towards the Holland Tunnel. My conjecture is this, and we'll find out in detail when the NTSB report comes out, but maybe one of the rotors came off. If one of the rotors came off completely, it would cause such a vibration in that airframe that it may cause the airframe to come apart. That's a possibility. What caused that rotor to come off is we're going to find out in the report when it finally gets published. Could they have hit a drone? Maybe. They clearly didn't hit another aircraft or another helicopter. We know that much at least at this point. But they came apart in air. The tail of the airplane came off. All of the rotors came. You can see here one of the rotors separating from the airplane and falling into the river. And the whole thing turns upside down because of the weight is on the fuselage. It inverts itself, and they crash into the river. And fortunately, they didn't hit the entrance to the Holland Tunnel. That could have caused some more secondary issues. But sadly, everybody's life was lost in this tragic accident, and we don't know exactly what happened. It's a very tragic accident, folks. We're going to wait for that NTSB report to come out and tell us the rest of the details on how exactly this happened. But I just want to reassure you that it's safe to fly. Looking back over the stats about helicopter accidents in New York, there's only been 30 fatalities in the last 50 years. And that's a really incredible safety record. So if you're thinking helicopters aren't safe, no, not exactly. The stats don't back that up. But when something like this happens, obviously it makes the news and it's very dramatic. But I'm here to tell you it's safe to go flying. We've just had a lot of things happen here recently, and hopefully we get a good investigation into this so we can find out exactly what went wrong with this helicopter. Well, now you know. I'm Captain Steve. Fly safe.
And that's a wrap. Hope you enjoyed tonight's rabbit hole. If you enjoyed this video, why don't you check this one right here. Thanks again. Till next time.